Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Deidre, and this is the Are You a CPS Victim? Like Me show. And this morning I have a special guest joining us, Loretta Romo, and she is going to be sharing her story and how she's been involved with CPS. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you take the floor, Loretta, maybe say where you're from and um, how you're involved with CPS.
Good afternoon. I am in Texas, Wharton, Texas. My name is Loretta Romo, and I wanted to share my story. After so many years, I've never been involved, and I want to make the public aware of the dangerous, um, serious issue with CPS. My experience now, as we speak, as I'm speaking, it's very harshal, very painful, and very stressful uh, when they deal with taking your children. Well, in this case, in my case, I'm not the mother. I'm a caregiver. I've had the baby since 6 months when he was born, premature. My niece was unable to keep him due to her drug addiction. She had four other children that through her whole pregnancy, that's all she knew was drugs. But then again, you got to understand where she came from. That's not something that it's involved in my uh, family or heirs. She asked me if I would take the baby in due to the CPS involved and didn't want him to get lost in the system until she got better. I brought it to my daughter's attention because it was just not me going to be involved. They were excited. We took him in. Uh, I stood there. He was in NICU for like 4 months before he was released because of his diagnosis, because of all the drugs. It was his system due to his mother's addiction. Uh, After that, I stayed with him. I have pictures where I was in there with him day and night. I fought plenty of times with the nurses because I wanted to know what was wrong with him, what were they doing. And a lot of people get kind of like offended, especially nurses, RNs, because they assume that we don't have the right to know, and we do. That is our right. We want to know what's going on with our babies. I called him my baby because he was mine when she gave me a POA, which is a power of attorney. To make a long story short, I've had him. He had seizures. He was under stress. I mean, just multiple diagnoses that I was not familiar with, that I had to educate myself, which I did. I've been in the health field back in my days, but now I'm retired. My main concern now, they got involved. Jorge, that is his name. He was born April 20th.
Real quick, let me interrupt you. Let's just try and refrain from using names,
Okay,
if you could.
okay.
I know it's
Yeah,
hard, but
okay.
just
Anyways, my son, can I call him my son? Okay.
yes,
Uh,
there we go. Perfect.
okay. And he's my son because I mean, not birth him, but I had him since he was born, basically. I was with him 24/7 when he was in the NICU. The mother would dare not to come in. And, they refused to let her in again because of the drug addiction, which I was trying to help her so she can recover the baby back. I'm not here to take
Mhm.
nobody's baby because I have my own. And I would took that stand to help her. Uh, so once he was released in August, he came home with me. We're all excited, it's just like a brand new mother. You start buying clothes, don't know what to theme him and everything else. But that I was left that to my daughters, which they did a good job. He would constantly have seizures, which that was his diagnosis, which I was unfamiliar with. So I would constantly have him to take him to the doctor, to the hospital, excuse me, because I had to get familiar with this. There's substance medicines that they give him, and as he grows, they start getting constantly more and more. So they have to up his dose to control the seizures. Other than that, he was fine. He was eating from his mouth, everything good. My main concern is that one day I took him back to the hospital, and the therapists were trying to check him, give him therapy because he didn't move, he wouldn't turn, stuff like that, which this was new to me again, so I had to go with the therapist so they can teach me. Um, so, which they did at the hospital, which was the hospital he was born at. Um, Now, my main concern now, back on the 21st of January, I got a CPS notification and said that the baby was not going to his visits. He didn't have his checkup. He didn't have his shots updated. Well, you see, don't know if you're familiar with the hospital, but they have portals, and portals are where you can go in and check the baby status, where he's at, if he's in the hospital, especially if you're affiliated with that hospital. So my baby was in the hospital constantly because his seizures wouldn't stop, and stuff like that. And I was noticing the difference between seizures and spasms. Which you would think the doctors there would know the difference. Well, definitely not. And they hate that when you tell them. That's not a seizure, that's a spasm, especially when you have him day and night, and you're observing him, you know. So he had to go back to the hospital because he was having the seizure, and then the spasm come in and his shaking wouldn't stop, and they couldn't figure out why, and they want to give more dose. I said, wait a minute, I don't think those are seizures. Y'all giving him too many medicine, and that's bad. Your heavy substance. So they checked him for spasms, and that's what it was. But since he had an appointment within that week in January, the his doctor, PCP doctor, called CPS, and the social worker called CPS and said I wasn't keeping up on his appointments. Well, the appointments weren't so bad. The thing is that they weren't being able to collect Medicaid funds, their visits. And I had to figure this out all by myself. I said, wait a minute. So I go and I make the visit with her, and I ask her, why did you call CPS on me? And the social worker, she goes, oh, is it we were concerned about what? He was in the hospital, and I got very furious with her, because some of the nurses were there training me, telling me, good stuff for me to understand. And I told her, I said, do you know what problem you're causing me here? Do you understand the stress to have somebody on your back for something you didn't do? And I'm over here thinking, wait a minute. Now I know why she did this. She's not getting paid for it. So she's losing money out of her, out of her account. So she's got to do something. So when I went to that visit, I told her, and she goes, no. I said, why don't you tell your secretary or your nurse that's doing your job or supposed to do her job to check the portal? Well, before I left the hospital, the doctor asked me, Mr. Romo, the baby's due for his shots. Do you want to give them to him? I said, oh, absolutely. So he got his shots before I left, maybe a week. Then I made the appointment with the doctor, follow up. And that's when it came upon me that they called CPS. I said, oh my God, are you serious? Well, we were just concerned. I said, you do Zoom visits with me? You could have done a Zoom visit instead of causing all this frustration on somebody. And, I was really very upset. I said, maybe they need to call CPS on you. This is what happens when they accuse you and you're used to fighting, injustice for 40 years. I've been fighting it in the system.
And then the sad part is that they turn it around on you when you do act the way that you're acting, because you are so enraged because you couldn't believe it. But then they turn it around and say that now you're like having anger problems, or you're just, a very negative person. And so this is what they're wanting you to do. And they want you to react like this because then they can use that against you. But even so, on the flip side, if you don't show any emotion and you go in there and just try and be, very neutral, then they say, oh, well, then you must not love your child because you're not coming in there all, emotional. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's like they set it up for that way for a reason. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then I say to myself, and this is just me, my personal belief. I said, okay, Lord, this has been going on for years. Why didn't you tell me this, or why didn't you show me? Well, I guess he had to show me with the baby that I have now to wise up and look, it's not just in the criminal system, the babies, that are getting killed, that are being, taken away for no reason with lies for the CPS. So we closed the case. The case was closed in July of 22. And I was, they never took them from me. And the same CPS that's accusing me now is the same CPS that was back then. So they come back again So he was in the hospital in January of this year because he was having seizures. But see, I observe everything. I ask questions. They don't like that. They hate that
Oh,
with
no, no,
passion.
no. See,
They
they
that
like to be the ones asking the questions, and little
yes,
do you know, they're trying to figure out, does she have money to like get her own attorney? Like, what kind of person is this? Does she have family that's going to be on her side or our side? Like, they do all of that without even you knowing. And that's why Mr. Davis, one of the main things he always says is, unless they have a warrant or, a valid reason to, number one, come knocking at your door and ask to come in, you basically talk to them through the door and say, unless you have a warrant, you're not coming in. And, as kindly as you can be, if you do have an attorney at the time, you just politely say, if you have any further questions, you can speak with my attorney. And, they just don't like any of that because then you're playing against their whole scheme or game. But then you said your case closed back in July of 2022, but then they came back now this year in January. And I just want to touch note on that because I don't think a
yes,
lot of people realize that just because your case might close, don't think that it's over, meaning now
yeah,
you're a
they'll
specific
come back.
example of
Yes,
that.
yes.
Oh, yes.
Well,
So go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
His same PCP. He was in the hospital, and everything was well and done. But on January 6th of this year, they called PCP because in November he had gone to the hospital to get a tube, a G tube, and
Mhm.
I decided to change doctor teams, the teams, the hospital team, because I was going to the hospital and then I went to another hospital and I decided to change. Well, she was really, really hilarious. I mean, she was just furious. Why are you changing? And blah, blah, blah. And then she started accusing me of not having his updates on his hospital. And luckily, I was able to get all his records from the hospital where he was born, what hospital he went to, what doctor he was able to see. I also was able, not they don't realize it, getting Medicaid's payment where she did Zoom me on these days. She's accusing me of not having taken him to the doctor. I'm like, wow, lady, you are in big trouble now. So she was mad, but the fact is that I didn't realize my baby had HIE. They never mentioned that to me.
What's that mean?
That's like he's going to be totally disabled. He will never walk. He will never, nothing. He's just going to be bed rest, basically.
Really?
Yes.
And that's all because of the drugs that the mother was doing while she
Yeah,
was pregnant?
right. In the first hospital, they only told me that he only had seizures. He was stressful, emotionally, just little things that I think, well, nothing I couldn't handle, you know.
Yes.
But this PCP, his first PCP, knew that, never told me one thing, and insisted that he would have physical therapy, um,
Well, yeah, what,
occupational.
what would be the point of physical therapy if he had this diagnosis of
Thank
HIE,
you.
meaning
Thank you.
it's
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, they're the doctors. We're not, right?
exactly,
So,
meaning this might be a whole nother case for you as far as I don't know the avenue to go down the road for that, but I don't know if it's criminal or whatnot, but to take upon the hospital or the doctors that misdiagnosed him or didn't give you the correct diagnosis, at the time.
well, you see, they
But
don't have doctors anymore. I don't know if you're familiar, but doing the research, they don't have doctors. They have PRNs.
or like,
Or
yeah, that's
okay,
exactly like
okay,
what is my aunt has her doctorate in, she's a nurse practitioner, but she went and got her doctorate degree from nurse practicing, so she's not still even considered a doctor, but then she is, so it's
no,
like wait a minute.
yeah, but I was doing my research that these hospitals are getting these PRNs to make it cheaper to pay.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Yes, and I'm like,
So here
wow,
you think you're thinking you're seeing a doctor, but technically you're not.
you're not. You're absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And these people need to know that, because they have a lot to lose. A lot. I mean, so the doctor from the second hospital told me, look, Miss Romo, your son has this. I said, what? She goes, yes. Did they not tell you? I said, no. She goes, well, yeah, that's just what he has. And they asked me if anything, because I was seeing all the pain and suffering he was going through. These nurses would put a needle and it gets swollen, and I get after, hey, take that off of him, or they would come in and do like 2 or 3 help, try to. I said, that's enough. I said, you're
Yeah.
only supposed to pick him like 2 or 3, I mean, like maybe 2 times, and that's it. Now, if you can't get no blood, get somebody out here that knows what they're doing.
Wow.
This is the kind of
See, I
attitude I
wouldn't be able to
have.
handle that. I'm like, they're rubbing the alcohol pad on me, and I'm already freaking out. I
I'm
can't
not
see
saying,
blood.
keep your hands up.
Oh,
There were several times where his hand had gone swollen because of the nurse would not come in and change it. And I had to
oh
call.
gosh.
See, and this is the frustration that they have with me because I've been an advocate for 40 years. For 40 years for the justice system. I used to be a member of LULAC. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And we got our prior district attorney out because of all the injustice he was doing to the community, on
Oh
sentencing.
wow.
So this is, they don't like this. I'm sure they looked at my
Well, we
profile.
need you to take a stand in Texas there then for this
Exactly.
platform
And
of
that's what I'm going
CPS.
to do because I feel like they're not going to give me this baby back. He's worth a lot of money.
Oh, so wait, they did take him out of your care now?
No,
I don't
I
think
said,
you mentioned
this
that
is
though.
just me. I don't think they're going to
Oh,
give him back to me, because he's worth a lot of money to their system. They get paid if they you can get the parent already signed her rights away, her parental rights away. Um, they're just trying to find the dad. But the thing is that if they can get the mother to sign off on the parental right, they get $67,000. Listen to me. I was looking and I was searching, and I
oh
even
yeah,
made
it's
copies,
disgusting.
and then they get money. But they're supposed to give money to these caregivers or all these foster, and they're keeping the money. The
You don't get
judge,
any money for taking care of him?
no, this money, no, no, no. They don't
Wow.
give you that. They don't. That's why I want these CPS ladies to think twice before they get a job as that position.
Yeah, but
Because
see, I don't know how it is in Texas, but I mean, here in California, like my mom
yeah,
has
you're
my two
supposed
older
to.
boys,
Yeah,
and she gets paid every month.
yeah, you're
And
supposed to.
when she found out that I found out the exact amount that she gets every month, not only is that the reason why I feel like they're still with my mom, but I feel like that's almost the reason why she's fighting so hard for them to
Yeah,
still come back home.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's what.
granted, I lost my youngest because he obviously went to a foster home that they were the perfect scenario. They were a young couple, can't have kids of their own, just became a part of this foster agency that they became affiliated with that is associated with social services. And my child was given to them at what, 1 month old?
You know how much
Meaning the
money they got?
perfect situation for,
Yeah. You know
oh,
how much money
and they're going to
they
get
got?
money for the rest of his life too, because that's called like a
But
stipend, I
yeah,
think, for adoption.
yeah, yes,
It's
yes.
disgusting. It's so
Yeah.
disgusting to think
So
that even
that's
these
what I'm trying to
individuals
put together. I
were
really,
supporting the fact of keeping my child from me instead of helping me in the fact of what they said in the beginning. Oh, well, we're here for you. We want to do whatever we can to support you to, reunify with your child. Bullshit. And I
yeah,
didn't find that out until halfway in when we were facing a TPR hearing and we were forced into doing the post adoption contract or agreement for if and when they were to have to adopt, what kind of communication, if they chose to have any, that we would have with our child after the fact. And that's when all the red flags came to light because here I'm thinking, okay, well, we want to at least see him once a month. And even that's going to be terrifying. They came back with, we'll be lucky if we get to see him once a year on his birthday. And then everything came to light, meaning they started quoting him as their son in court. And we need to hurry this hearing along so we can have our son or keep our son. I mean, it's just disgusting to think that these people can go to sleep at night knowing that they kept our perfectly,
that's okay.
healthy,
Because
beautiful child away from their biological parents, all for basically money and selfishness.
yeah, you're
I mean, it's
absolutely
sick.
right.
It really is.
And I've said to
But
my girls, I had said to my girls, Deidre, that if they don't give them back to me, I'm still going to fight, and I'm going to expose all the funds. The judge, she charged $600 for each child. Can you imagine the presiding judge that sees over these children, CPS cases? And I was adding up. And I have a list here. I'm not going to say no names.
wait,
I
so
have
I
a
thought I
list.
asked you a second ago, he's not in your care? They did take him out of your care?
They took him out of my care because of that reason. They're saying that the doctor, his PCP, saying that I missed all these appointments. And the bad thing is that they don't know. I know that this is not their jurisdiction. His mom lives in Houston. Okay. And
Okay.
she only gave me a POA. So she got involved. So that hearing shouldn't even be in Wharton County. And they think I don't know that. That should be in Harris County where she presides.
Do you have a public, like, are you provided counsel, public defender? Did they
Yes,
provide
and I
you
feel like I'm
at
not
least
getting.
by doing anything, right?
Yes, after the
That's why they
thousands of
call them
dollars.
quote unquote public pretenders. They
Yeah,
work for the state, so therefore, what do you think they're going to do?
but that's okay. You know what? Like I told everybody else, next year's election, guys, we're gonna get them out. I am so involved.
That's what
People know
Mr.
me.
Davis always says. If you watch his shows, what are we going to do to change this? And it's like, vote.
Yeah,
You got to
exactly.
vote.
Vote them out because the county attorney knows me very well. He knows what I'm all about. And I tried to explain to him, and he just like didn't want to listen. I can fight too, but you're fighting the
Who
wrong
has
fight.
who has the baby? If you don't mind me asking, is it with family at least?
No, he's with the foster care. That's another thing. Let me tell you, Deidre. In
Oh
January,
no.
and wait a minute, in March, in February, I had nurses out there. They had become real close for me because I didn't want them to do anything for my baby. If I could do it, I was going to do it. If I can feed him, I can bathe him, I can clean the room, I was going to do it. I was making their job less. You know what I'm saying? So they can
Yeah.
attend other children that really needed it. And they loved that. They said, man, I wish all the mothers would be like that. I said, well, I don't know about anybody other mother, but I know what mother I'm going to be. So he had respiratory problems, which I had already, checked them, and I was trained for all that and stuff. So, when that happened, I'd have to give him his treatment and all this good stuff. But in the suit, when they put the suit and took the baby from me, never did they mention me. Nothing. They put in there that he was in custody of nobody or something like that. I'm not ready. Didn't mention that he was in my custody because he was in my custody, but he was in the hospital at the meantime. But I was still his priority provider. So I wasn't able to see or go to the hearing. It was a Zoom hearing. I was not able to go because they didn't invite me. Because if they would have invited me, trust me, I would have put up all my evidence. So I had to file an intervention. What was it called?
So now, like you mentioned that they gave you POA, power of attorney. Now, how does that equivalate to, like, as far as what I'm assuming that you don't have as far as legal guardianship or any kind of
Well, it's pretty much it's good if the mom sizes the notarized, which is was, and but since the mother got involved, she wanted to get him blah 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 back and all this kind of
so
stuff.
she didn't necessarily have her rights be
No,
terminated by you being power of attorney.
no, but I was going to adopt him.
Yeah.
Last year, we filed the paperwork. She was supposed to sign it, and it was hard to get a hold of her because she was still on drugs. She was in a halfway house. In fact, I was going to get two of her children because she has another one that she can't find, and I can't believe CPS is not about that. And I told them that, but CPS
I've
was
heard
working.
stories about that too, about how children just get lost.
Well,
I mean,
lost
it's
because she gave it away. The mom gave it away. Okay. And
okay.
she wanted me to adopt both of them, which I was willing to, so he wouldn't be him by himself.
Yeah.
Well, CPS got involved with this and her mom, and then CPS went and told the mom, "Are you familiar with what your aunt?" Because they've always called me aunt. What your aunt is doing in case the baby something happens to him, and looking at all that and all this perspective of him being ill, crying, doing this and doing that to him at the hospital, I said, Lord, no, this cannot continue with him. He cannot be going through this while the mom's over there happy and flapping on social media. The dad, who knows who he is. I said, it's not fair for him. So they came to me on the second hospital where I went to and asked me, Loretta, you need to make a decision because they figured he was really sick. I said, we want to know, in case something happens, do you want us to give resuscitation? I said, what is that? Explain it to me because I'm not familiar. I'm kind of no, but I'm not familiar. So she explained it to me and told me, would pump his chest and all this kind of bad stuff. And I said, no. I said, he will be in a better place. He won't suffer. I said, and heavens knows what could happen if we keep him like that. So I decided no resuscitation because I said, Lord, you're going to take him with you. He's just a baby. He's going to be in a better place. He will enjoy himself with you. I said, while his mom's over there enjoying her life, not putting 2 cents in him, not worrying about him. No, it's not fair
Well, and
for
I hate
him.
to say, but kind of brought him into this world with all these problems. I mean,
Yeah,
kind of,
and it's
sort of.
not fair. Right. Yeah, and it's not fair for him to have to suffer like that. That's just the way I was
Exactly.
thinking. It's not fair. So CPS calls her and tells her, and then she texts me back. I said, "Do you know what resuscitation mean?" I said, "Yeah." Why? He goes, "You want to kill my baby?" I said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." CPS just called me and told me you want to kill my baby in case. I said, "Let me tell you something. Why are you
So how
letting me?"
does she have that right? Meaning, if it wasn't for you, where would this child be in the first place? I mean, good Lord.
And CPS is so dirty, so freaking dirty. I said, "Man, these
Oh,
girls are
I
gonna
know.
go, excuse me, this is me. Y'all gonna go to hell. And there's no way
Yeah, I
out.
know.
Nobody's gonna help you." I mean, any of
Hmm.
that, did your mama teach you any of that? Do unto others? Not even for the
The
no, see,
my
no,
horrible story too, like I mentioned, is you would think that it's a good thing that my two older boys are with my mom, their grandma, but for the most of my time with CPS, every night I almost felt like I was fighting my mom more than I was fighting CPS, just because she wasn't happy with the fact that I would not leave the father, and the father was kind of the reason why our children got taken. But you know what? We've been together for 13 years. He's the father of all three of my children. He hit a rough patch in his life and ended up finding out that he has, mental health diagnoses that he now, sees a psychiatrist for every month and is taking prescribed medication. But make a long story short, she just could not get over the fact that I would just not leave him, thinking that, oh, then all of a sudden my children come back home. That would not have happened. I've seen too many stories where they tell the parents the same thing. Tell the father to
mhm,
leave, children will return. Doesn't happen. Now they have no husband, no children, and the family's even more broken up. So,
thank you.
the sad part is right now, though, is that um, the things that, even my mom tells my children. And I mean, today's my birthday. I turned 40 today. I want to be with my children
Yeah,
today.
I
You
know.
know, it's like it's a bittersweet because it's like I'm happy, but I'm not happy because all I did was simply ask if I could be with my kids this afternoon. And she found every excuse in the book to try and make it seem like I couldn't. And then literally at the end of her message, she says, well, I'm sorry it's your birthday, but it's just reality. So you have to get over it. I mean, how can a mother like just talk to
Those
their
are the
child
kinds
like
of,
that? Number
oh my
one.
God. Oh my
But
God.
number two,
CPS.
all I'm asking to do is to have my children be with their mother on her birthday. How hard is that? Not to include the fact that my youngest, I God knows when and if I'll see him again, but that's a pill I have to swallow every day. And the fact that my mom never even acknowledged my youngest when he was born. She took me to the hospital when my water broke because I happened to be staying at her house that night. And she literally dropped me off at the ER. And her last words were to me was, I hope you make the right decision and give this baby up for adoption because look at the situation you're already in. You do not
She's
need to
going
be
to
having another
hell.
child.
I'm sorry. She's
But
going to
yet she's
hell.
Catholic and she takes my kids to church every Sunday and she took it upon herself to get them baptized.
Oh
Meaning
my
I'm
God.
Christian, but I go to a Christian church. I don't really follow the whole Catholic get up, sit down, military style, don't get anything out of it. I went to Catholic school my whole life, all girls Catholic high school. All of a sudden, all this stuff happens to me. I try and find faith in the higher whatever. So I come across, this pastor named Stephen Furtick. I don't know if you've ever heard him, but he opened up the eyes of basically the Bible to me and the fact that, yes, I have been raised as a Christian, meaning that's what Catholics are. They believe in Christianity, but not with the all extra, what I consider bullshit. And so, I even tell my kids, because my mom would tell my kids that I just need to go back to church. And I go, I do go to church to my kids, but I go to this church. Well, then they tell my mom that. And my mom say, that's not a real church. That's all basically BS. That's what my mom tells my kids. It's not a real church. It's holy roller BS is what she says. But this is the Catholic person that's talking to my kids and trying to act like she's living such a God-fearing life and taking them every Sunday. But yet then in return, this is how she treats me and them, to where my oldest the other day, I think I said this on my show last week, my oldest, he'll be 11 this year in August. One day he looked at me and he started to ask me a question. And then he said, oh, it's okay. Never mind, mom. And I said, no, I said, I always want you guys to be able to come to me. And I've always told you that since you guys were little, because I didn't have a relationship with my mom. I said, I don't even care if it's something so bad that you think you're just going to be in so much trouble. I want you to be able to come to me. So finally I tell him to get, to tell me what it was. And he goes, well, I just don't want to make you upset, but mom, are you sure that grandma is really your mom? And I had to sit there and think about it for a second. And to think that a child at the age of 10, what he's really saying is, He witnesses on a day-to-day basis how horrible my mom treats me, to the point where now a 10-year-old is thinking so complex to the fact of seeing all the CPS stuff going on, seeing the possibility of when my mom gets fed up with them and says, if your mother doesn't get you guys back, you're just going to end up in a foster home because I can't do this any longer. I'm too old. I've already raised my kids, this and that. And so he's fearing that. And then now he's putting it together thinking, is my mom really my mom? Because he does not see any love of what a mother should give a child whatsoever. I would buy them shoes. Like, they're into Vans right now. And I got these really expensive ones that came out and kind of had a really cool pattern to it, like an ocean pattern. I bought them for them. She ended up telling them they could only wear them one day a week to church for 1 hour, and that was it. I said, I didn't buy these expensive shoes for them to be church shoes. If you want them to have church shoes, you buy them church shoes. But she would do this vindictive stuff to me because at the end of the day, it got me to the point where the kids, before they would leave my visit, they were like real quick checking their pockets. And God forbid they take anything back with them because, of course, it would be a problem. It got to the point where she told my social worker, my kids are not allowed to receive any gifts unless it's a birthday or Christmas. God, I hate to say bad words, but God damn it, these are my kids and my money. Well, why do you care what I buy them? It's like she just would make them want to resent me so much, in the fact that it was just so stressful for them in a way to see me when they would see me because of all the stipulations that would come to play in it. I mean, it was just horrible what she would put me through. But then she would even tell my kids about my youngest child, because I'd have one sibling visit a week where I'd have all three. And then I'd see the two older ones on another day. And then I'd see my youngest on 2 other days. But the sibling visit, she would tell them almost every time, I don't know why you're still seeing your brother. He's going to be adopted to a good family. You'll never see him again. I mean, how could you even say that? That's still her grandchild and will always be her grandchild till the day she dies, whether or not she wants to acknowledge him or not. But again, where did she ever teach this to us growing up? And as far as her belief, as being a Catholic, how could she just, she could have saved my youngest for me. She could have taken him in. Granted, it would have been hard for her. I understand that. But again, she was the one, I feel like, preventing me from reuniting with my 2 older kids all along, and still is. And I believe that that's also the reason why I lost my youngest, because the more time that they were able to drag this case out, little did I know, would be the more time that they were then able to throw in my face that now it would be more detrimental in breaking the bond that my child now has with these foster parents to be able to return him back home with his biological parents. Now, how sick is that? He only has created this somewhat bond with these people because you wouldn't let him come home. You forced him to be there. It's just sick from every avenue. And to think that these are children. Now, my poor child, he's half black and half white. He's with 2 white, blonde hair, blue-eyed Mormon people. Now, you tell me him growing up in that kind of atmosphere, who's really going to be suffering?
He's going to suffer. Did you hear about that case?
Oh, exactly.
Did you hear about this case? I'm sorry, and real quick, because it came to my mind. Out in California, these 2 ladies adopted 4 black children, and they killed them.
I think I did. They drove off a cliff or something.
God.
Yes.
Oh my God! Really, CPS?
I think there was like 5 of them actually. Yes. No. Yeah. It's sickening. And then they went back and were able to prove all these different scenarios about how much abuse was going on, and how they always wanted to try and paint that picture of going to family events and putting on the show, and then back behind the scenes, they were able to find all these different scenarios of how the abuse was.
Gone to prison for somebody. Because the system is so broken, they don't care.
It's really just disgusting. It really is.
Oh my God.
So basically, where you stand today is, how long has your son been out of your care now?
Since February the 1st, and with lies.
You get to see him still?
No, they gave me a plan. I went on the 29th to call that intervention. Oh, let me finish telling you. I didn't tell you in February. Yeah. I got so friends with the nurses because we were able to communicate, and they saw the injustice that was going on, not just with my son, but with other children. And she calls me and she tells me, Miss Romo, I said, yeah, because I don't want to scare you. I said, no, that's fine. What's going on? Goes, one of these, and this is what she said, one of these dumb nurses jerked the G-tube out of the baby. I said, what? Says, yes, because he has G-tube. She jerked it. In other words, she wasn't paying attention, so it got hooked on the crib and it came out. Can you imagine how much pain he was in? Can you
Oh
imagine how
God.
no one there to hold him, no one there to
Oh
comfort
God.
him? Oh my God. And then these doggone CPS like nothing, like nothing. I told my attorney secretary, nothing, nothing. So
Now,
right
the
now,
people that have him though in his care, are they any kind of medically like knowledgeable type of people, or do you even know?
nothing like I was, Deidre, nothing like I was.
Well,
And
exactly.
they
Yeah.
accused me of not giving him his medicine. This is how ignorant the CPS people can be.
And to know there you were in the hospital with him, but they're trying to make it seem like you missed his doctor's appointment when yet you're in the hospital with him. Like,
Thank you. I mean,
you're
but
like,
it's
okay, so
funny.
I missed the doctor's appointment, but that's because my concern for my child is that much more extreme that I'm now in the hospital for him.
No, I think what happened, CPS and the PCP that my son had, you know, in collude. So now she gets to have him back again as a patient. So she didn't lose no
Mhm.
money. You see what I'm saying?
That's
So
the sad thing
that's
too, is they all are entailed with each other.
yes,
Like
but
I
that's
heard
great.
horror stories before of like nurses like literally saying, I think Miss G said this on one of her shows, how she overheard nurses like basically saying like this is the kind of baby I'm looking for, so keep an eye open, like this color hair, this color eyes, whatever. And the next thing you know, a mother giving birth to this kind of child is now having a nurse give an allegation of something so false just so that it could fall in the hands of CPS, and how sick that is. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think really
I mean, you're
nationwide.
almost afraid to even go out in public anymore with your kids because, God forbid, you know, it's really sick. It
No,
really
and the
is.
thing is that we need to get together nationwide, make it a day to where all these women that have children taken away from them take their affidavits, take their proof to courts, and find out who is the lawmaker that's making these decisions, towards our children, and go after them and outvote them. I mean, that's just the way I'm
Yeah.
looking at things. Because in Texas, let me tell you, I think they have an event next month, and I'm hoping to be able to speak on it because I want to show the mothers and fathers this is the money that these lawmakers are making out of our children, from the judges,
Oh yeah.
from the attorneys, the county attorneys, the CPS, and also to change to where we can get these CPS. There was one case out of Houston where this lady, her baby fell, and they accused her. CPS got involved. They took the baby. Let me tell you, she came back at him. It cost her some money, but she came back at him so strong because the doctors accused her of abusing him. These doctors are so much lying and liars,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I can
Well,
say
that's
this.
the thing with Mr. Davis. So how I found his show is obviously because, I got to the point of seeing where my case was going and feeling so helpless, and your public defender don't do nothing for you. And then you find out everything that he could have done and should have done. And then next thing you know, being so invested in Mr. Davis, and not only him being what I consider an expert, if not number one in CPS cases, but if I would have had, like, let's say the money and to have known about him in the beginning of my case, I mean, I swear that I would have had my kids home by now. Meaning
Yeah,
my case would not have dragged on because, again, if you have somebody as knowledgeable as Mr. Davis and you are able to afford him, that's what, again, we all promote on these shows is you need to get a lawyer immediately, like if not the day before, because again, most of these parents like myself get thrown into these CPS cases that you know nothing about. You're still being so naive thinking that these people are actually supposed to be helping you and supporting you and so-called trying to get you back with your family, when in reality they're doing everything opposite, and you're still just in such denial. Like Mr. Davis even says, you're going to wake up one day and say like, yes, I live in America and this really did happen to me, they took my children, and then it will be too late, and then what are you going to do?
yeah,
It's just, you really don't believe that. I used to tell my mom this all the time towards the end, like basically my comments of, you're just like them, you just want to keep my children because of the money and the funding. And she really had the audacity to basically make me feel like I've really gone off the edge. I must be now on drugs and I'm just like basically loony, loony, loony. And, because again, if I didn't know what I know now and I heard like of a neighbor getting their children taken because of CPS, honest to God, I would have thought, well, they must have really did something wrong. They wouldn't just take their kids, because again, it's being naive about it and not really thinking that this entity that's supposed to be out there protecting children is doing not only the opposite, but then worse, like really like stealing them. That's why I think this whole abortion making abortions illegal. It's sick to think, but I was thinking about it the other day, and I looked at my husband and I said, that's why they're making it illegal, so that they can have more children to take, as sick as that
Exactly.
sounds.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, really. I mean, it's just really sick. I mean, from all avenues, and that they always want to throw in your face that they're doing what's in the best interest of the children. But then you go home and you're like, my children to this day, my two older children, when they come over and they are with us, I'm supposed to get minimum of 6 hours a week supervised visits, but I basically have my kids every weekend all day because it's convenient for my mom. Whenever it's not convenient for me to have my kids, like if she wants to use that against me, then all of a sudden it's the rules. But as long as she wants to basically have her weekends to herself, oh, my kids are here every weekend all day. And I get them during the week and I go and take them to their karate and I buy them still their new shoes, I buy them their clothes, I buy them all their like gadgets and gizmos. But she's still getting paid X amount of money every month to speak, to take care of them, but yet the money is obviously not going to them. I pay for my oldest child's Kumon every month, which is like $180 to help him in his math and reading and stuff. But again, she's getting paid to take care of them. But the second that if I piss her off or if I do something that, whatever the case may be, right away she throws it in my face that, she's not going to let the kids see me again. Now, wait a minute, back up there. How is that even right in the kids' eyes to see that just because grandma and mother have an adult issue, the consequence is going to be for the children not to see their mother or father? Now, that really makes sense.
Remind her the court order.
Well, the court order, though, is really, I mean, if she wanted to push that, I mean, it would be me then losing out at the end of the day because it would be 6 hours a week supervised. And then she even threw in there that if she chooses to have it be through Zoom, she could, meaning not even let it be in person. I mean, to think that this is my mother.
Gosh.
I mean, it's so harsh. It's so harsh because, again, it's like, I know what it obviously is like to have children and be a mother. And I tell my kids all the time, there's nothing that you could ever do in this world that would make me ever not stop loving you or not care about you to the point where my mother not only shows me that she doesn't care, but the vindictive things that she has said to me and done to me over the fact that she doesn't agree that I'm still with the father of my kids, even though, granted, she's on her third marriage and her second marriage was of 10 years to my stepfather that decided to leave with the clothes on his back and never come home, meaning he was an alcohol abusive person. And I swear if he never left, she would still be with him. So in my mind, it's like, how can you even dare think that you're pointing a finger at who I'm supposed to be with when yet look at the life you're living? And she's still not even happy. She's only realized that she has to stay married because she's up in age and can't afford to financially live on her own single. And yet she has the nerve to tell me who I'm supposed to stay with and break up my family even more, even though I grew up in such a broken family. And to think that she goes to sleep every night, okay, and has the balls to tell me that she doesn't know how I can go to sleep at night. I still to this day don't know what I ever did to her to make her feel like she has this authority to not only treat me this way, but to prevent me from being with my children and have my children come back home. They cry when I take them home. They look at me and say, "Mom, please, we don't want to go." And I'm like, it's like the worst feeling in the world to not only not be able to like save your children out of a situation like that, but then to know that it's your own mother that's doing it.
Wow.
It's sick. It really is.
Maybe you need to research her. Maybe she ain't your mom.
Yeah, like my son says, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, I've always felt like the black sheep of my family. I really don't have a family. My father passed away a few years ago. My sister and brother live in Vegas, and I don't even know the last time it was that I talked to them. My brother's considered the golden child. He's the lawyer that, can do no wrong. And that's another thing. My mom bought a house in Vegas about right when this case first started, about over 2 years ago. She still has that house. And the only reason why she's still here is because of this case and the kids. But now that she's technically the legal guardian, she has the right, and they even wrote it in the final court paperwork, that when she chooses to move to Vegas, she's taking my children with her. So that's my other hoop is the kids finish school out next month, and I am petrified that that's going to be when she makes that decision. But it's also sad but funny. My oldest child is very aware of the situation as well, and he goes, "No, Mom, it's okay, though. We still have some time because, you see, Grandma still has to put her house up for sale here and sell it before she will move. So she hasn't done that yet, Mom, so we still have some time." But for
No,
him to even have to think about that, it's just,
yes, that's stressing. That's stressing for him. That shouldn't even happen.
oh
And
my
his
gosh, the stuff that my kids tell me on a day-to-day basis, as far as I went to their open house the other day, and this broke my heart. Um, there was, all the stuff on their desks that they make, and you want to flip through it and you want to read it, but then, you only have a certain amount of time and you got to go to the other kid's classroom. But anyways, I go to read this one thing on my oldest child's desk, and all I read were the words of something like, but I don't live with them, and something about die or death. And I'm like, oh, what? And he goes, oh no, mom, you don't want to read that right now. You don't want. And I go, but oh, I almost said his name. And he goes, no, you could just read it later. Well, come to find out, I made a point that anything that came home from open house, I want, just because I've always kept their stuff, but I really wanted to read what that said. And it was so sad in the fact that it basically was like a little questionnaire about like, I dream and then fill in this. I, want to be and fill in this. Basically, he said, as far as I dream for the day that I go back and live with my mom and dad because I love them so much. And then another one was like basically saying something like, I don't know, I can't even think of it, but it just really broke my heart to think not only are those words so harsh and hurtful as far as having a poor 10-year-old having to write this in a classroom when it should be like, I dream to be like, a baseball player or something like that. But no, my poor kid is having to dream to go be back home with his parents that he loved and that we love him. I mean, the stuff that my kids have made me throughout this time would even break someone's heart. I'll never forget my middle child. He's the more emotional one. He's a Gemini, just like me and my husband. So we're all very similar in that fact. But it was Valentine's Day, and he made something in school, and he literally told the teacher what to write. And it was something like, I know you miss me when I'm away. So here's a hug from me to you so you can have a hug when I'm away, or something like that. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is breaking my heart. But yet little do they know that they're having to feel this way at such a young age in school. It's sick to think that CPS does this to these poor innocent kids, thinking that they're doing better for them when in reality they're traumatizing them more.
That is sad. That is so sad because they're just it's just these kids shouldn't even
So
be
do you
going.
have, before we get close to the show ending, because it's getting to that time, I wanted to say for you, for your situation, do you have any chance or way of still being reunited with him, or have they shut you out completely?
No, they haven't shut me out. They wanted me to take a drug test, which I did. What I didn't like is they gave a service plan to the mom, and they gave me her service plan. And I'm saying, why am I having to take her service plan? I don't do drugs. I don't have a mental issue, and I don't take any kind of drugs whatsoever.
Well,
So
why is the mom still even an option? I'm not understanding that point.
because I don't know. That's just it. Supposed to give up her rights, but they're wanting me to take a psychological
Logical evaluation. Yeah,
and
a 730 or something. Well, in California, that's what it is.
yeah, and I'm like refusing. I said because they can use that against
Try
me.
and get it with your own doctor. Don't go to theirs.
Yes, and that's what I'm thinking here. I'm gonna because they want with CPS's office with the ladies, and I said no. I said because they're gonna use anything, everything against me.
Yep.
I said, and I'm not letting that happen.
Because I found that out the hard way with my therapist. I found out after the fact that I could have found my own therapist and went to my own therapist that I chose that would have been on like a CPS list or whatnot. But instead, I naively let them choose my therapist. Little did I know my social worker specifically chose this one, partake in the fact that anything and everything I said or did, it did not make any sense to the fact that I was ever succeeding or doing well. So I finally put up such a fight that I refused to go any further with that therapist because I said, isn't therapy supposed to make you feel better, help you? It was doing all the opposite. I would stress about it every week. I would cry about it. I didn't want to do it. So finally she decided, okay, I'll put in another referral for you. But in the meantime, you not having any therapy does not look good in the court side. I said, I don't care because the previous one, it was the opposite. So then I get the second one and it was just as bad, but in a different light. She was then now like a family and marriage therapist, where the one before was like specialized in DV, domestic violence. Well, now this one was literally the one that would tell me on a weekly basis of, the threat of me staying with the father and do I know what that's really doing? And to the point where she literally one week had me so convinced that that weekend I was going to pack up my bag and literally leave the father because that was the only way I was ever going to get my kids back. And because I didn't choose to do that, she told my social worker she would refuse to give me any therapy going forward. And therefore, I was left with no therapist. So same thing with that psychological evaluation they're trying to set you up with. They're trying to set you up with one of their doctors to give it so that they can manipulate the whole
Thank you.
result and make
Thank
it
you.
seem like you got all these problems and then use it against you. So if you do go forward with it to try and comply with it, I would recommend you finding your own doctor to do the psych eval
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm.
hopefully it not be biased, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's what I plan to do because I was looking at the affidavit that the CPS put on there, and she said one of the nurses were saying I was challenging everybody. Well, of course, I'm going to challenge you when I think you're
Because you
wrong.
want the best interest of the
I
child.
was just because I was advocating, because I was, you know, I see that you wanted to violate my rights. No, no,
Why
I'm
won't they
sorry.
give you visitation?
She said I had to go through all this, but they gave the mom visitation, and the mom never had the baby, and they knew that.
See how that is? See how that is? It's so ass backwards and
But that's
corrupt. It's
okay
like
because
here
you
they
know
want
what?
to,
Deidre, I
yeah.
talked to an outside attorneys, and I have like three of them ready to come in without charging me because there was a case out in Harris County, and like I was telling you, the judge found that these allegations that the CPS put against this young lady.
Uh-huh.
Let me tell you, they thought they were getting away. If they know they lied, that's why I want this case transferred to Harris County. If the judge knows that you lied, the CPS lied, they're not protected. You see what I'm
But
saying?
see, CPS, social workers, nothing ever happens to them. It's what Mr. Davis said
No,
once before. They have qualified
no,
immunity.
no, you're wrong. You need to look up Harris County cases from
No, but this is for
CPS.
California, though.
But
It
I'm
might be
saying
different.
no, no, it's the same. But the judge found that she was lying. It says on there, if they found out you're
No, I
lying,
know, but like, let's say she was lying then. Did anything happen to this social worker?
yes. They didn't come up with what the judge wanted. They filed in contempt, and then they put them in jail. Yes, yes.
Oh, well, that's a rarity to it because most of the time,
No,
all these social workers do is just get a little slap on the hand, and
no,
next thing you know, they're
no,
promoted.
no, no, not this judge. And then the one out of Corpus Christi, she's a judge lady. She is devastated and sick of Texas with the CPS putting these kids in their office to sleep. It's just bad. We had so many kids died in their hands, and she's just like,
Well,
I'm not gonna.
the other girl that was going to be on the show with us today, I mean, I don't want to speak about her case, but I mean, her case was so involved. I mean, all she mentioned to me is that she has 9 children and one of them has died in CPS care. And so I was just like, I think we need to have you on my show when it's just
Oh,
you so you could be able to have.
yes,
And I was like, you know, still, it's just these stories that you hear. I mean, it's just, and you could just hear the rage in her voice. I mean, I can only imagine, but gosh darn it. I mean, to think
yeah,
that these people are not only taking your kids, but then actually killing them off in a way or sex trafficking them. I found out that this is like
yeah.
the new thing. And then they get them in this whole, you know, process of that. And then they have kids and then they take those kids and then, oh,
Did you know
Lord.
that they get paid too if they die?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff that I have learned and educate myself to be able to, share with other mothers. Look,
Do
don't
you have
ever.
an upcoming court date or what's the next
Uh,
step in?
I not yet that I know of. I'm trying to finishing up this therapist. The therapist that I have is very nice. She says, I don't even know why I'm even therapying you, Miss Romo. This is what she told
Well,
me.
you better tell her to notate all that for you.
Yeah. Well, I haven't recorded, so I said I'm going to
Oh,
call the CPS and ask her, "What are you trying to accomplish? What is it that you want from her?" I said because she don't even know. Because she asked me, "Do you even know you're going to get the baby?" I said no. But the judge on the day that we went to court to intervene to file that motion, she told her, "Give Miss Romo a plan of service." So to me, tells me that
or
okay, I
can't you
have.
try and file a motion? We have something similar here in California. I'm not sure if it's correct because I'm not a lawyer. I can't give legal advice, but I've heard Mr. Davis mention it before where you can file a motion to be the, oh, what's the terminology where you're the parent, you're the what parent? That's on the tip of my tongue.
Temporary.
Now I can't, now I, oh, de facto parent, de facto parent. Do you have that in Texas or no?
Yeah, we do. But in fact, I just saw that last night. With
Yeah,
one
de
of
facto parent, because that's what the foster parents did to us. When it got close to the fact of it looking like we were going to be, getting our rights terminated, they real quick filed that, and I got that in the mail, and I was freaking out, thinking de facto parents. What are they considered as parents now? I don't get it. No, but what that does is number one, that gives them permission to be able to be in the courtroom for the hearings and going forward, and it gives them kind of like that right to kind of like be in the knowing of anything and everything that's going on with my case in its entirety going forward. Where before, like let's say before they were granted that de facto parent status, they wouldn't have been able to have that right or to know certain things because of them not having that status. But in your case, I don't see why you would not be granted that, knowing that you had the baby in your care since he's been born, basically. So that's another avenue. I don't know if it's the same in Texas, but that would be something to
I
look
saw
upon,
that.
because then
Yes,
maybe
it
you
is.
would be granted a little bit more,
I think it's called Factor Mall or something. It's called different. But if you can just maybe text that to me, if you
Yeah,
know
okay,
the
I will.
code, I would be grateful. And then I
Yeah.
can, because
Well,
seems
like I
like,
said, it might be different in Texas, but you can always Google it. What's the de facto from California called in Texas?
yeah, okay.
But we're coming to a close here. So, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And if you ever want to come back again and share any updates with us, of course, I would love to have you. And, the way that you're going to be going forward and doing your fighting and voting, I mean, that's all what Mr. Davis is wanting us to do these shows for, is to get the word out. And, the more parents that hopefully are informed and know a little bit more about the technically what you want to consider rights that we have that we don't know about. He even made a statement one time that has always stuck in my head. A criminal has more rights than a parent does in a CPS case.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad to think, and it's the opposite. Usually it's you're innocent until proven guilty, not in a CPS case. It's like you're guilty right off the bat until you can
Exactly.
hopefully one day prove you're innocent,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sick.
Yeah.
But okay, well, I thank you again for coming on the show, Loretta, and I'll text you when I get done here, and then keep in contact if you want to come on again in the future.
Yes, I appreciate it.
And
Thank you
best
so
of
much
luck
for
to
coming
you,
on the
okay?
show.
Hopefully
Thank
it works out one day. All
you. Me
right,
too.
have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.